That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so this is going to be a video of me just being lazy, where y'all know that over there on Patreon, I literally upload probably 3 to 5 extra podcasts every single day, breaking down Dynasty teams. And that's for everybody who decides to join the flock over there on Patreon. And this past month, we have had over 100 people joining, which is absolutely crazy. But what it means for me is it means I'm staying up until 1 a.m. every night just to make sure we get all our work done, then waking up at 6:30 and repeating it all over. So we're kind of going to overlap here. We have some teams that we need to break down. So instead of going through and making Patreon only podcasts with these teams for today, which trust me, there will be more over there on Patreon. But instead, we are going to combine the fact that we need to make a video today. We need to make these podcasts today. So yeah, this is what y'all get a taste of over there on Patreon, where I pull up your teams. I give you an in-depth breakdown on how I think you should improve by going through and making trades. And I also will, of course, answer any questions or harshly judge any trade questions or any trades y'all have already made. But before we pull this first team up, please go down there, drop that like, leave a comment letting me know what you think I said was stupid. Let the people watching this video right now with their own teams on the screen, let them know what they can do to improve, because obviously a lot of people watching this video right now are significantly smarter than I am. So your opinion matters, and please leave it down there in the comment section. But let's pull up this first team. This is coming out from Deets. This is going to be a 6-point passing touchdown league. So a really quick insight on how we are changing quarterback value with 6-point passing touchdown versus 4-point passing touchdown is, instead of going through and just giving the entire quarterback position a bump up, what we have to understand is we have to understand that in a regular 4-point passing touchdown format, I mean, you are just going rushing. I mean, if a quarterback does not have any rushing upside, I don't want anything to do with them. I mean, a guy like a Tom Brady there is literally meaningless for me. Whereas in a 6-point passing touchdown format, that's going to offset the difference that you find from those rushing QBs with the quarterbacks that you're expecting to have passing volume, and the pocket passing options that can lead the NFL in overall yards actually become a lot more appealing. Now, this is also a 1.5 tight end premium format, so obviously that's going to be bumping up the tight end position, and this is a 12-team league. But if we pull up this roster right now, my man Deets, I am sorry that it's taking me so long to get this out to you. Obviously, this is going to be an extra day because it's a video, and I am sorry that we are going to have to criticize this team to no end. Okay, so I will say that there is a lot of work to be done here. Now, it's not because you don't have the talent on the roster, but it's because this roster is stuck in no man's land. It's stuck halfway between contending, halfway between rebuilding, and I really think that we need to be picking a lane here, because you pull up this roster. I mean, at quarterback, you have Zach Wilson, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Trey Lance. So obviously you love your quarterback situation when you have both Zach Wilson and Trey Lance. Now, y'all know Trey Lance, literally you probably can't find a single person that's higher on him for a 4-point passing touchdown format than I am. I have him almost everywhere, and I've been drafting him at the beginning of the second round of startup drafts that are super flex. But here in a 6-point passing touchdown league, I think you actually get a small dip with what you would be expecting from his overall rushing value. Now, I'm not telling you to trade him away. I'm just saying that he's a little less valuable here than he would be in a 4-point passing touchdown format. But still, you love to build around the long term with both Zach Wilson and Trey Lance, even if you're not expecting a ton of production right away. Now we go over to running back, where you have Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs in the starting lineup. And then going down to the bench, Darrell Henderson, Alexander Madison, Anthony McFarland, Chuba Hubbard. And then down there on the taxi squad, it looks like you have no running backs. So here, your running back room, I want to say it's fine. The problem is viewing a Josh Jacobs and trying to determine if this is a rebuilding piece, if this is a contending piece, or where we really stand. Because we have seen Josh Jacobs and his overall dynasty value, as well as his real life NFL value, kind of go down consistently over the past few years. But what is very surprising to realize is Josh Jacobs is almost identical in age to Najee Harris, which is very funny, but I want to stand by something we say all the time in Dynasty. At the running back position, you do not only need to be worried about age. Now, age is something, yes, you have to keep in your mind, but what's even more important is understanding contract structure and what it means for the guaranteed touches of a running back. And in the case of Najee Harris, while yes, he is essentially the same age as a Josh Jacobs, I'm going to be viewing him as a much longer term piece because he's assigned to that rookie deal. I mean, he has 4 years guaranteed plus a 5th year team option. So, you know, Najee Harris is here for the long haul. But Josh Jacobs already played 2 of those years on that rookie contract. And it's not necessarily like he is slating up to be guaranteed to get that team option. So with Josh Jacobs, I mean, it's hard to know how many years we are going to have left of him in a starting role. I mean, right now we are seeing the Raiders go out and give a ridiculous amount of guaranteed money to Kenyon Drake for all people. So Jacobs, please let me know what y'all think in the comment section below, but I have a hard time figuring out if he's a win now piece, a rebuilding piece, even with him being very young. But now going over to wide receiver, I mean, you have some pieces right here that are definitely contending pieces. You have Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., now Juju Smith-Schuster, someone you can build around for the long haul, but both Odell and Julio are guys that are right now players. Sammy Watkins, Laviska Shenault also in the flex spots. And then down there on the bench, Jarvis Landry, Kendrick Bourne, Christian Kirk, Traquan Smith, KJ Hamler, Dimey Brown, Tylan Wallace, and Rondale Moore with Seth Williams, Cornell Powell on the taxi squad. So at wide receiver, I mean, this is just another spot where I feel like we're halfway between. I will say I 100% want to be moving on from Odell Beckham Jr. this offseason. Now, yes, this is coming from someone who loves Odell and has a massive bias with Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, we're sitting behind his original rookie season jersey. But the problem with Odell is that contract situation where he is owed $15 million the next 2 seasons and $0 on that contract are guaranteed. And we have seen that Odell has been one of the most disappointing wide receivers in the NFL over the past 2 years for the Cleveland Browns. And I don't think it's possible for Odell to have a 3rd disappointing season without Cleveland deciding to move on from him if it costs them nothing and deciding to use that $15 million instead to possibly go pay a Chris Godwin, an Allen Robinson, a Will Fuller, a Juju Smith-Schuster, really anybody that's going to be hitting the free agent market this upcoming season. So despite me really liking the player Odell Beckham Jr., I think his dynasty value is honestly a little bit inflated based on the name value alone, because right now he's also a wide receiver that's going as a wide receiver 3 in redraft leagues, and I'm viewing him purely as a redraft play. So if you can move on from Odell Beckham Jr., get a Rashad Bateman, get someone like Elijah Moore, possibly get a future pick as well, I think that would be intriguing, and it would help you kind of pick a direction with what you're doing with this team. Now, at tight end, another piece that is kind of a long-term, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts in the starting lineup, and then down there on the bench, Tim Tebow. So I will say, I see no reason in rostering Tim Tebow at all. I would much rather just use that spot on a running back like an Eno Benjamin, but to each their own. Now here, Kyle Pitts, literally like the only tight end that you have on this roster. So if Kyle Pitts, like every other tight end in NFL history, has a slow start to his rookie season, you're in a spot where you're kind of going to have to just be punting the first few weeks in a tight end premium format. Now, of course, Kyle Pitts can come on strong and he can be an elite tight end by the time we get to his rookie season, but I'm viewing this as a long-term play. So I hope this kind of gave some insight on how I'm viewing this team. I just think that it's so hard to try to determine if this team is a rebuilding team, a contending team. So what I want to be doing is I want to be trying to offload some of these assets that are just purely contending assets, and I want to be getting some long-term value with this roster. I mean, guys like Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, if you could trade Josh Jacobs for Travis Etienne, I would do that in a heartbeat. And then even down there on the bench, I mean, someone like a Jarvis Landry, a very similar situation to what we said with Odell, another wide receiver that has no guaranteed money after this year. Now, what's great about this team is you do have those extra future first-round picks where you have an extra first in 2022, an extra first in 2023, as well as having some additional draft capital in 2023 as well. So yeah, there are just so many things that point to this team probably needing to be a rebuilding roster. Now, if we pull up some of these trades that you have made, I mean, man, I'm going to be completely honest here. I don't necessarily love all of these. But anyway, in this first one, you decided to trade away Joe Burrow and Donovan Peoples-Jones to get the 102 and Darrell Henderson. So I'm essentially viewing this trade as you traded away Joe Burrow to get Trey Lance, which I'm fine with in a 4-point passing touchdown league. But in a 6-point passing touchdown format, I think here Joe Burrow actually becomes a lot more interesting, where you're not having to see the difference in rushing equity between a Trey Lance and a Joe Burrow as a deal breaker, where Joe Burrow, we can safely say, will probably project to see more passing volume, and that should offset that. So to be completely honest here, man, I think that given this format, I would prefer Joe Burrow and Donovan Peoples-Jones, even though I am a massive, massive, massive Trey Lance fan. Now, this next trade, it looks like you essentially traded away Dalvin Cook for the rookie pick 105, and we go through and look at what that 105 became, and it most likely was Kyle Pitts. So another trade that, I don't really like this one either. Now, Dalvin Cook, definitely someone that, I would be selling in Dynasty if we could get back a running back on their rookie deal that we really like, someone like a Cam Akers, someone like a Jonathan Taylor, but I just don't know if you got enough here. Now, the next trade we're going to be looking at is you traded away TJ Hawkinson and a future second-round pick for the 107 and a future first. I actually really like this deal. You essentially got 2 firsts for TJ Hawkinson and a second, and in a super flex format, that 107 is a blue chip prospect. So yeah, I really, really like that trade. And then the last one we're going to be looking at is you traded away the 108 for Josh Jacobs, the 203, the 212, and the 301. Now, I am not a Jacobs fan in the slightest, but I actually think you got great value here. I would do this trade 10 times out of 10 as well. Now, I really hope this gave you a quick overview on this team, man. I really hope that this helped in the slightest. And of course, we talk all the time over there on Patreon. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have. And I want to give you a massive, 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 massive thank you for deciding to join the flock, support the show on Patreon, because I promise you, that makes a difference. We're moving into a new studio later this month, and that's the reason, is because all of the support y'all have showed on Patreon has allowed that to happen. So thank you so much, my dude. Okay, so this next team we are going to be bringing up is a very interesting format where this is coming out from Untamed. My man, I just want to echo what I said to Deets. Thank you so much for deciding to support the show. But I'm excited to break down this team for you right here. And this is a 14-team Superflex format that is a half-point PPR league. So understanding that this is a 14-team Superflex format, that should right away sound some alarms in you going, okay, we need to be drastically raising up the quarterback position value here, because we understand that in a 12-team league, you're always going to have some teams that are holding on to 3 quarterbacks. The majority of teams are going to, and then there are only going to be 1 or 2 teams that possibly need that extra quarterback, that are in a spot where they don't have that quarterback too they're confident about. But in a 14-team league, it's going to completely change the equation here, where the majority of teams are actually only going to have 2 quarterbacks that they have on their roster, and the majority of other teams are only going to have 1 that they feel confident about. It's going to be a lot of teams with their starting quarterback being Matthew Stafford, their second guy being Drew Lock, and they go, I really don't know what to expect here. It's just supply and demand of the quarterback position. We know in the NFL, there are only 32 guys starting each and every week. We understand that bye weeks will take some away, where sometimes that gets down to only about 28 starting teams. And then throw in the fact that about 4 or 5 of those guys, it's very hard to project who's actually going to be the starter through this season. So you're sitting in a spot where there are not enough quarterbacks to go around in a 14-team Superflex league. Now, to throw just salt onto this wound, you are playing in a format that has a very shallow starting lineup. So we pull this up. You start 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and a Superflex spot. So some quick math, that shows you that there are 8 starters on a week-to-week basis for this team. And 2 of those starters are going to be at the quarterback position. So 25 of the starting spots in this league are going to be quarterbacks. And knowing that quarterbacks score more than other positions, all of a sudden you're going to be expecting, just say, about 40% of your starting lineup output on a week-to-week basis. Probably higher than that. Probably 45% is coming from the quarterback position. Then at all the other positions, you take away half a point per reception, and that bumps up the quarterback value even more, because running backs, wide receivers, tight ends are all going to be scoring less. So all of a sudden you're going, well, there's a scenario where if we have 2 elite quarterbacks, if we have a Dak Prescott and a Josh Allen, we can be getting 50% of our starting lineup production just from those 2 spots. So that tells you that quarterback is the number 1 thing here, and it's not even close, just like the real life NFL teams, which is why I really like this format. But anyway, going into this roster itself, you have Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins at QB. And then pulling up the bench right now, you have Taylor Heinicke, Jacob Eason, and Sam Ehlinger. So yeah, I mean, this is, I don't want to say an average quarterback room for this format, but it's definitely not sitting here making you look like a juggernaut. And I'll say, if we can go through this roster and find some depth elsewhere where we can possibly move a Kirk Cousins into a quarterback that we're more excited about, I mean, that's something we are definitely going to be doing. But anyway, going over to running back, I am extremely excited to see that you have both Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott. Now you also have Mike Davis in the flex, and then we go down to the bench. You have Tony Pollard, James Robinson. So this is a running back room that you really have no questions with. I mean, you have 4 guys in a 14-team league that you would feel comfortable starting. And I think this is where we look to make a move, because I am a massive fan of Saquon Barkley. So we're probably going to be looking to hold on to Saquon Barkley here. But what I think is really appealing is you can go through and you can offer the entire Dallas running back backfield to a team that may need a running back. And if you could move that backfield for a quarterback that we have discussed is in that tier 2 of quarterbacks for us, I mean, go get someone like a Trey Lance, a Joe Burrow, a Russell Wilson, and upgrade at your quarterback 2 spot. That's going to be something that I would love to see. And then you could go through and during the season, possibly move Kirk Cousins for a running back like, I don't want to say Joe Mixon, because a lot of people aren't going to understand quarterback value in this format. But if you can just do something like that, that'd be very appealing. Now, going over to wide receiver, you have Robert Woods, Laviska Shenault in the starting lineup. And then down there at the bench, Cole Beasley, Will Fuller, Tyler Johnson, Jalen Waddle, Rondale Moore. So at wide receiver, I mean, you have plenty of depth. But the one thing I want to point out here is a wide receiver matters very little in this format. You're only starting 8 players. So we know wide receiver depth isn't going to be that crucial. You throw in the fact that you only have 1 flex spot, and we can assume that you're going to want that to be a running back the majority of the time. And you're realizing that at the very most, you're starting 3 wide receivers here. I mean, the majority of the time, you're only going to be starting 2 wide receivers. So when you have Rondale Moore as a wide receiver 5 on this team, well, in a league that's a flock Patreon league where you have to start 11 players and there are so many of those flex spots, I'm going to be valuing my wide receiver 5 highly in Rondale Moore. But in this type of format, I mean, he means nothing. I think that if you could use him in a package deal, if you need to upgrade that quarterback 2 spot, going through and moving a Jalen Waddle, moving a Rondale Moore, I mean, a James Robinson, any of this depth, I think that's a move that is completely fine to make. Now, at tight end, you do have Chris Herndon in the starting lineup. No idea why, because both Dallas Goedert and Austin Hooper on the bench. And in a 14-team league that is not tight end premium, Dallas Goedert is going to be perfect for me. But thank you again, my man. I really hope that this helped out. And of course, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate. Go over to Patreon. I check it literally hourly, and I'm going to get back to your DM very fast. But yeah, thank you so much for checking out the video, my dudes. I hope you all have a great day. Drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow. I want to give a big thank you for everyone joining the flock over there on Patreon. In Castro, Brian, Mike, Jay, Samuel, Billy, Rocky, Bailey, Zachary, and Andrew. Thank you, my dudes.